This morning is the release of the World Meteorological Organization's provisional statement on the status of the climate so far in 2016. It follows the release of the status of the climate report from 2011 to 2015, which we released here last week. Copies have been sent electronically to everybody in English. We also have copies of the full provisional report on the website, and copies in French, Arabic, Chinese, Russian and Spanish are also available on our website, which is public.wmo.int. Without any further ado, I will pass you to Professor Petri Talas, who's sitting centre. He's the WMO Secretary General. Beyond that, in the middle, is Dr. Max Dilley, who is Director of the WMO Climate Prediction and Adaptation Division, and on the far right is Omar Badour, who's the scientific coordinator of this report. The press conference will be in English. Dr. Badour is Moroccan, and so if there are any questions at the end in French or Arabic, we can obviously accommodate those. So without further ado, please, Professor Talas, thank you.
So good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming to this event. And we are going to discuss very much this graph that you can see on the screen, which is for us quite impressive. So earlier last week we were publishing the report of last 5 years climate development, and some weeks ago we also published press release on greenhouse gas status, and in both cases we have also been breaking several records. And the work that is going to be presented here, it's done by WMO Secretariat together with our 191 members, and it's very much the people from the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services who have been contributing to this report, and they are running the global observing system. And we have also academic contributors to our work. So as you can see in this graph, we have been really breaking all the records. We were breaking records last year. Last year was the warmest on instrumental records so far, and if you look at the first 9 months of this year, we are fairly high up again, and we are breaking all the records. And it's likely that we are going to reach this year 1.2 degree warming level, and we are going to a bit the wrong direction if you think of this 1.5 degree warming level, which was agreed last year in Paris. And there has been also contribution of the fairly strong El Niño event, especially when it comes to last year's temperatures, and it is still having impact on this year's temperatures. The last very strong El Niño took place in 98, and you can see that the peak also on the graph, but the peak this year and last year is something quite unusual. And as you can see from the press release, we have seen 16 out of 17 years this century being hottest years on record. And we have been also seeing other records this year, and we have exceeded this 400 ppm level of carbon dioxide. Last year we were reaching it for the first time, and this year we have been above 400 ppm of carbon dioxide for the whole year. And in Mauna Loa we were reaching 407 ppm just recently. And then we have seen also unusually warm temperatures in the oceans, and they have led to coral bleaching, which is a bad sign for the ecosystems in the oceans. Then we have seen plenty of disasters, and the most recent disaster has been Hurricane Matthew hitting Haiti, which was suffering from the previous earthquake in 2010 already. Again, the highest changes have been taking place in the Arctic area, and we have seen temperatures which have been 6 to 7 degrees above normal, especially in the Russian part of the Arctic. And because of climate change, we are observing these extremes more often. We cannot identify that each individual event is because of climate change, but for sure the frequency of those events has increased because of climate change. And from WMO's perspective, it's highly important that besides mitigation, that we also pay attention to adaptation. In the coming decades, we will see this negative trend to continue anyhow, which means that we will see more often disasters related to weather, and a very powerful way to adapt to these changes is to invest in the early warning systems which are provided by the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services. And we have, I would say, 100 countries that would need a strengthening of their services, and that's a common challenge when it comes to adaptation to climate change. And Africa is the continent where this need is perhaps the largest. And there have been some studies whether these extreme events are related to climate change or not. And Bulletin of American Meteorological Society has been studying this. And there's a study where they were studying what happened between 2011 and 2014. And they were able to show that more than half of the extreme events can be related to climate change and its impacts. And in some cases we have been increased, which is tenfold as compared to the normal climate that we had during the pre-industrial times. And all these highlights of individual observations you can find from the report, and perhaps I don't repeat them. And it's related to this Arctic sea ice, for example. It's related to individual disasters that we have observed, and these events, they have had also an impact on the human lives. And we are working together with United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and last year there were 19.2 million new displacements which were associated to the natural disasters, and that's a fairly high number. It's higher than the number related to military crises. And the potential for immigration in the future is clearly rising, and that's a matter of global concern. And I would like to give the floor now to Max Dilley, so he may elaborate the issue a little bit further, and thereafter to Omar Badur. Please.
Well, thank you, Secretary General, and good morning, everyone. I just want to add a word about the report itself and the role that it plays in informing the implementation of the Paris Agreement. WMO has been producing this report annually since 1993, so that's 23 years now, and there have been a couple reports like the one we released last week that deal with 5-year periods and 10-year periods, and the data in them on greenhouse gas concentrations, on temperature, on sea ice, and so on, as the Secretary General just described, is very relevant for tracking the implementation of the agreement to try to limit the warming to between 1.5 and 2 degrees above the pre-industrial level. And as we see from this year's report, we're on track this year to reach 1.2 degrees above the pre-industrial level, which is very close to the lower limit set by the Paris Agreement. So we hope that these reports and the information in them will be useful to the parties in the negotiations that will be needed in order to try to limit the warming to the levels set in Paris. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Badur.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. Just some additional information about the statement itself. Secretary General provided the global picture of what is happening and the key indicators such as sea ice melting. If you look at the regional and national level and also at seasonal timescale, we can find some very alarming information, such as, for example, some areas in Asia which reached 6-degree temperature above the long-term average, which is not very usual. And also at continental level, some continents have already broken the record. Initially, in the past, we could have breaking records at global level, but now we are seeing breaking records even at continental, at national level. Russia and Federation of Russia and India, both of them have reported the warmest year on record with a large margin compared to the averages. If you look at the seasonal timescale, which actually where the feeling on applications and sectors is more visible, you can find in some countries that summer was the warmest, or winter was the warmest, or spring was the most, almost everywhere in the world. This has strong implication on the daily life of people and also on socio-economic influence. Professor Talas also mentioned one of the very high impact kind of influence that 2016 we have recorded is the coral bleaching. The coral bleaching is kind of desertification of the life in the ocean, which affects fisheries and also the jobs of fishermen. So we have established very good relationship with many of UN agencies, and we are looking forward to even more collaboration so that in the future we will get very informative information on the impact of climate change, also on climate variability. Something that we need also to take into consideration, which Professor Talas has already mentioned, is the El Nino. We had one of the strongest El Nino in 2016, and its influence expanded over 2 years, 2015 and 2016. One of the strongest impact that we have recorded is the expansion of droughts in many parts of the world, especially in Southern Africa and north of Southern America. Actually, in Southern Africa, according to the FAO, some 17 million people will need assistance by the end of this year or early 2015. As you can imagine, the lag between the event itself and the impact can be 1 year or even 2 years. So this is what I wanted to add and leave it to Claire. Thank you.
Okay. Could you just please introduce yourself with your name and media affiliation? The lady on the right, please.
Samia with the Associated Press. A report was released that carbon emissions have flattened. And so I wanted to ask what impact this will have on global temperatures.
So as we have seen, despite of this positive development, slightly positive development in emissions, we have seen the carbon dioxide concentration still continue to increase, and the temperature record was really impressive, even for me, who have been dealing with the climate records for my whole career. So we are not yet going in the right direction, despite of slight decline of the emissions. And this El Nino event has also contributed to the carbon dioxide concentrations. We were having more drought and also more forest fires, like in Canada, and they were contributing to this carbon dioxide concentration increase. And it will be interesting to see what's going to happen in the coming years. And of course, we are all hoping to see this positive trend also in carbon dioxide, to see phase out of this continuous increase that we have observed so far.
Okay. Yeah, Reuters.
Thank you very much, Alistair Doyle from Reuters. What do you think of the election of Donald Trump, who's called climate change a hoax in this context of rising temperatures? And also, is there a risk that in coming years we're going to see a 1998 type event in that climate skeptics seized upon the record temperatures in '98 as a sort of as saying, well, actually temperatures are going down or they're flat. How long is it likely that if there's no big El Nino in future years, that we'll see temperatures falling or flat? Please, thank you.
Yeah. So to the first question, as WMO, we are based on science and technology, and our message to the COP and the outside world is what we have been measuring and what we have been calculating, and that's for us the scientific fact. And when it comes to USA is having one of the strongest scientific institutions in the world and the best universities in the world, and they are highly contributing to this science that we are dealing with at WMO. And then there has been also lots of investments to renewable energy and renewable energy research in the USA, and we are very grateful for that. And we are not a political organization. We are not saying the COP meeting how the government should tackle this problem, but we are bringing this scientific background which is a good basis for future action. This fact that we were having this strong El Nino in also '98 and in 2015. There was some debate that whether there's a plateau in this warming evolution, and you may make a mistake by looking at very short time series. You have to, in our case, we are usually using 30 years as our norm, and that's the right time scale to think about this problem. If you look at only 5 years evolution, you can find quite wild numbers. And if we would, for example, look at the past 5 years and at 2015 and 16, we would see very dramatic increasing trends. And the same is true if you go backwards to this time series. You can always find periods of 5 years where you can say that there's a plateau, but that's not the right approach, and that's not how the atmosphere behaves.
Okay, there was a couple of others as well in the middle. Yeah, the gentleman there. Yeah.
Thank you. Georg Ehring from German Radio Deutschlandfunk. How sure are you that 2016 will be really the warmest year? Because there are still 3 months missing in the statistics. And how warm was it? Have you an absolute temperature?
Yeah, so we have only 7 weeks of this year left. So it's I would say that it's 95% certain that we are going to break all the records, and this atmospheric system has certain inertia, and it's not. I would say that it's not theoretically possible that we would go to the 2015 level, but this record-breaking year is highly likely to take place. And I will give the floor to Omar Badur for the exact number of the global average temperature.
As you can see in the press release, we say that it is very likely that 2016 will beat the previous year record. In our jargon, very likely that means 90% chance. And based on the October data that we have received from our partners, this trend is confirmed. So we might even increase that percentage to say at least 95%. We are sure that 2016 will be the warmest year. The situation where you will get the opposite is almost inconceivable, because you need to have October, November, and December data well below the average since the beginning of the century, which is very unlikely. But in order to make that uncertainty still valid, we still keep 90% chance to have 16 as the warmest year. Yeah.
And the actual temperature, Dr. Badur?
The actual temperature increase with respect to the long-term average, we use at WMO 6190 as a baseline. It's 0.88 above that average, and the average is 14 degrees centigrade, so it's now close to 15. It's 14.88. But if you compare with the pre-industrial period, which was much cooler period, we are now around 1.2 degrees centigrade above that baseline. And as Professor Talas mentioned, we are close to 1.5 degrees centigrade. which is a symbolic threshold for UNFCCC negotiation.
Okay, I have a couple of hands there, and then we'll go to the lady at the back. Okay, so yeah, just there, yeah, and then you afterwards, yeah.
Thank you, Pelita Clark from the Financial Times. Could you just put the 1.2 degree figure into context, please? Because obviously it is very close to 1.5, the figure in the Paris Agreement, but presumably you don't expect to see it last beyond this year. And if you do, what does that actually mean about the Paris Agreement? Is it already impossible to imagine being able to achieve that 1.5 degree goal? Thank you.
Yeah, so this 1.5 degree, that's going to be debated very much in the future IPCC special report. So they are producing this 1.5 degree report, and it's likely that we would need some technologies to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere if we to reach that number. It's still theoretically feasible, but it would mean that we should have very dramatic. We should see a very dramatic decline in the emissions taking place already in the coming years, and that's a question how prepared the countries are to reach such a dramatic emission decline. And this El Nino event we will see also in the future. So with the next El Nino, there's a chance that we will reach already this 1.5 degree warming level. And all this means that we will see an increased number of disasters related to weather and also the economic losses which are already rising very, very, very rapidly, and that's a matter of concern, for example, for the insurance sector.
Okay, there's a lady at the back, and then I'll bring it back down here again. The lady on the right with the camera. Yeah, you. Yeah. There.
There.
Just over there.
This is very concerning because we were at 0.8 at Paris, and it was over 130 years we managed to get that far. And in less than 1 year, we look like we're going to head for another 0.4, half again as much. I mean, this is so serious that somewhere along the line there has to be a breakdown in communication. Either they don't believe it. Have you any idea what it is that is making them not believe the science? If they don't believe the science, what is it that they want to believe?
Of course, there are also players in the world who are getting their income from the fossil energy, and for them it's this kind of transition to more renewable energy is not perhaps positive thing, and there may be such tones behind also this kind of thinking. But these observations, at least to me, are very striking, and they are showing that there's a need for urgent action, and there's a need for urgent implementation of the Paris Agreement, and even go beyond these pledges that we saw last year.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Sorry, did you want to?
I just wanted to add one thing that because of the El Nino, we did have an exceptional spike in the temperature this year. It likely won't be as much of a boost next year because of the absence of an El Nino. But I think also that the increase and the changes are, if I may say, happening a bit faster than the process can keep up with them. So in the long term, I think this type of information is going to influence economic transitions, energy transitions, and so on. It's a question of how fast that will happen, and we're in a race against time in that sense.
Okay. Yeah. Do you still need to ask? Okay. The gentleman just there, please. And then we need to wrap it up. Thank you.
Joydeep Gupta from the Third Pole and the Earth Journalism Network. The UNEP emissions gap report just released a few weeks back said for any chance of 1.5, the emissions have to peak at 2020. Given what you are getting right now, will that be enough?
So, as I said, IPCC is now has decided to produce a special report on this 1.5, and in that report, they for sure have to tackle means how to take CO2 from the atmosphere and how to apply new combustion means and how feasible those technologies are. That we will hear it as a result of that report. But the message from our side so far is that these mitigation ambition levels should be fairly dramatically raised if we want to reach those low numbers.
Okay, we have time for one very last question. Okay, just there, and then we need to finish. Thank you.
Srishan Venkatesh from Down to Earth. So the NOAA said last week that the ENSO was finally transitioning into the La Nina phase. How, from the initial expectations, what is expected of the longevity and the strength of the La Nina phase?
Yeah, so we are also part of this El Nino La Nina variability forecast business at WMO, and this El Nino has been very strong, and it has had lots of impacts on drought and so forth last year. And this El Nino has now faded out, and there's a slight chance that we will see fairly weak La Nina in the coming months. But the signal is fairly weak, so these impacts won't be as dramatic as we have seen the impacts of El Nino so far.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, everybody, for coming. We will be available for questions and interviews, but outside the room, because obviously we have to make way for the next person. Thank you.